It was Hans Ørsted who in 1820 first reported that a magnetic field was produced when an electric current flowed through a conductor. In 1821, Faraday demonstrated how this phenomenon could be used to move a wire around a permanent magnet. He used lightweight flexible coupling and a salt solution to reduce friction whilst maintaining electrical conductivity. It's perhaps strange then that it was over a decade before a practical electrical motor was produced. There are ways of increasing the magnetic field by concentrating the apparent current flow by coiling the electrical conductor. Another method is to use an improved magnetic field conductor, such as an iron rod, concentrating the magnetic field, which forms an electromagnet. The rod becomes magnetically polarized and has north and south poles, as in the global magnetic field. Electromagnets can interact with conventional permanent magnets, where it's realized that opposites attract and likes repel. The larger the current, the stronger the magnetic field. Reversing the current reverses the magnetic field. A magnet on a bearing can be caused to move by controlling the current in the windings of a nearby electromagnet. Adding further coils provides great control over the movement of the magnet. Grouping coils reduces the windings involved, and pulsing the drive currents into each group provides finer-grained control of its rotation. This could be sufficient to provide rotation, but adding sensors that detect the position of the bearing provides feedback and further improves control. Hall sensors typically perform this role. Swap the positions of the electromagnets and the permanent magnets, and this, in essence, is how a direct drive hub motor works. This is the inside of a hub motor.
And we are just lift it out. Like so. And there is our
with the
stator.
permanent magnets located around the rim,
The rotor looks like.
And the electromagnetic coils here. Huge currents, producing greater movement, require thick wires, but the sensors only produce small currents, requiring only thin wires. The presentation of all these connectors, both thick and thin, emerge conveniently from the centre of the hub. My current project, no pun intended, is to boost the power of my current e-bike, a Violamite front-wheel drive, by adding a second hub to the rear. This video charts some of my experiences and answers more fully some of the questions I've already received. I hope it's useful. Here is a schematic of the original setup. The controller sits at the centre of the design, connected to a battery power supply. A push switch on the throttle is used to turn the unit on and off. Confirmation that controller is powered up and ready is shown on the display. Speed is controlled using a twist grip fitted to the handlebar. A PAS, a pedal assist, is fitted to the pedals to detect the rate of pedalling, but this is unused. Switches fitted to each brake lever act as safety cutouts and remove the power to the motor when braking is required. Power is removed when either brake is applied. There is no mechanism for regenerating electrical power from the braking back into the battery. This is the simple initial system. I've managed to replace the rear wheel and manhandled a second hub motor in at the back and added a second controller. I've used two separate controllers in this setup for several reasons. The first is that it is a simple way to add to a legacy system like this. The second is that it's likely to be cheap, although that could be debated. Third, it will be simple to repair if something goes bang. But most importantly, using a single controller with a much higher current controlling capability just will not work. It does not work because each wheel is independent. From my description, it should be seen that the drive current pulses are related to the position of the hub. Using a single controller would involve synchronizing the rotation of both wheels. The precise positioning of each motor is impossible to maintain. Even if they were aligned initially, they would not revolve at precisely the same rate. So, each wheel is connected separately as per the manufacturer's diagram. The thick power leads, yellow, blue and green, and the thin Hall leads here presented in this polarised connector. The power is connected to a single battery. All of the other connections for a single controller are shown here. Controllers vary, but for the units I have purchased, the typical connections are the connections to the pedal assist, the connections to the handbrake, the connections to the throttle assembly, which includes a signal connection to the throttle, a high voltage power supply switch, and a return to drive the display, and a power level setting. Great care has to be taken when modifying the wiring, as some signals are low 5-volt levels, whilst others carry the full battery voltage of 48 volts. The two don't mix well. Large batteries can store very large amounts of power. Take care not to short the battery. I used a mainly discharge battery during the construction and included a hefty inline switch for convenience. Although the pedal assist was connected on my bike, it's never used. These controllers operate without the PAS being connected. The connections to the brakes are a really important safety feature. I'd hate to be aboard a bike with motors stuck full on, as one of my correspondents has already reported. The colour coding on the brake connections are red and black, but there's no real polarity here, as the brake connections are only switches. They're normally open. Adding brake connectors in parallel is therefore acceptable. In fact, this could be a useful connection later, should you want to design your own anti-theft device. The connection to the throttle requires care. Black is the common ground. Red is the 5-volt power supply to the throttle control. The throttle is just a variable resistor. The white wire is the low voltage throttle return. The white wire can be directly connected to the white wire connection of the second controller. It's wise to combine this by connecting the black wire too, which may avoid potential noise issues. The high current pulses from the motors do produce a lot of noise. The red supply connection is unnecessary. This completes the speed control circuitry. The three other wires connecting the throttle are brown, yellow and green. Take care, as these are higher voltage levels. The connection on the first controller is as follows. The brown wire is the battery supply out to the throttle. The yellow is the signal that returns from the push button or key switch on the throttle. This is used to turn the controller on and off. The green connection is used to supply the display on the throttle control. The brown and green connections on the second controller can therefore be ignored. The yellow wire has to be connected, as this enables the second controller. The Viola Mart system offers two power level settings. Title these as you wish, 250 watt or a kilowatt. The power level is set by shorting two blue wires, 250 watts when shorted. This has been connected to a simple switch on the handlebar of my bike. The blue wires may be paralleled up, but a word of warning here. Although the two wires are blue, they have a polarity and may not be indiscriminately cross-coupled. In fact, on my setup, the connectors on each of the controllers were different. This is not surprising, as the manufacturers are not expecting units to be run in pairs. One of the blue wires will be 0 volts ground. These should be connected to one another, and then connect the remaining blue wires. If you're unsure or can't confirm the polarity, then just use a double-poled switch to isolate the inputs to the two controllers. Note, it's advisable to run both hubs at the same power level. This completes the upgrade. In my setup, I've used a small perf board to solder all the connections together. This makes testing and demounting relatively easy. It also allows me to mount an Arduino onto headers for coming projects. The results. These are older, heavy, inefficient, but very solid hub motors. A good base from which to build a test e-bike. The parts are relatively cheap, particularly when purchased as a kit. The addition of the second hub has little effect on top speed, as anticipated, but does increase the torque and hence acceleration and uphill performance, which was in truth the driving demand for this upgrade, and something to do during lockdown. The original photograph shows a smaller 10 amp hour battery mounted on the rear rack. This is inadequate to drive both motors uphill, as each controller is rated at 26 amps. With 2 miles on the initial trial, it was disappointing to feel the bike hunting as it took on a reasonable hill. Disappointed but not unexpected, as I'm morbidly obese. I have a huge sympathy for this system. The larger battery, mounted low beneath the pedals, solved this problem and lowered the centre of gravity. I'm now carrying out range tests. There are a couple of niggles. The first is these aluminium adjusters, which are really not up to the task, with the internal screw threads wearing in time. More importantly, the spokes emerge from the perpendicular drilled holes on the rim, resulting in the spokes having to be bent when threaded into the complete wheel structure. This is surely likely to cause problems in the future. Experienced cyclists tend to sneer at the quality of the tyres supplied. Mind you, they sneered at the Schrader valves. The manual is just adequate, written to cover a range of options, but poorly explained. The meaning of the screens on the various displays is not explained. Having said that, what is shown is trivial and not really helpful. Things to do. I really need to add a rear brake. This will require some aluminium welding. The original frame employed rear hub brakes and gears. I'd like to use disc brakes, but space is at a premium. I should not have fitted the rear cogs. I'm going to replace this with a really small single cog and cut a huge front cog to maximise the gearing. And this will give me something to do, not just ghost pedalling. The Arduino is there to cope with the real-time battery analysis and GPS. This will also use Bluetooth and LoRaWAN for external monitoring, security and control. I'm tempted to convert this bike into a trike and really boost the battery power. As the owner of 2 milk floats and having built a small electric car for my 4 children, I like the idea of adding more carrying power and making the whole thing legal for British roads. This is a time of change. To be practical, it can't be too long before this aluminium frame cracks under its current load. I'll have to wrap this up for the moment. I hope the details have been of some use. I apologise for the quality of the graphics and will post credits and further references below. In the meantime, happy and safe pedalling.